Hi, thanks for joining us for the second webinar of our COBOL series. My name is Jeff Wood, and I'm one of the engineers here at Faircom. I had such a great time last time I hosted, I agreed to do it again. What fun! Today's webinar, we will focus our attention to how easy it is to modernize your COBOL applications by developing new modules in PHP, Python, and Java. And also, please join us tomorrow for our third webinar on real-time analytics on your COBOL data. While we wait for other participants to join us, we have 3 quick poll questions. These will help us better understand you and your COBOL. Right there in front of you, you should see the first poll. And the first poll is basically, what is your job title? Are you a manager, CIO, developer, architect, a system admin, end user, whatever. So while we wait for the votes to come in, I'd like to share a fun fact with you. 240 billion lines of COBOL code are still in use today. Wow, that's amazing, right? All right, let's go ahead and close that poll. And we're going to launch into the second poll. And the second poll talks about how much time did it take to recover from your last COBOL outage? Hopefully you didn't have one, but if you did, is it 1 to 2 hours, 3 to 5 hours, greater than 5 hours? I don't know. While we wait for the votes to come in, we'll go ahead and share another fun fact with you. There are over 5 billion new lines of COBOL are added each year. So we already started out with over 240 billion lines, and we're adding another 5 billion. Wow, that's a lot. Okay, we'll go ahead and close that poll out, and we'll jump to the third poll. And this last poll actually deals with how do you actually develop your COBOL reports today? Are you actually using them in COBOL? You use external reporting tool like Crystal Reports, or you export the data, or you don't use the reports. And while you look at that and we get some votes coming in, the last fun fact for today is 90% of Fortune 500 companies use COBOL code. Wow, that's pretty cool. COBOL's been around a little while. I love that. All right, let's go ahead and close out the poll. Let's do a quick take of the look of the results and see where we're at. So I'm going to share that first poll with you so you can all see who's in the actual audience with us. It looks like we've got a whole lot of developers and architects, which is awesome. Let's hide that result and go on into the next one. And here's the poll results from your last COBOL outage. Man, a lot of you are over 3 to 5 hours. That's unfortunate. All right. Let's hide those results and move on to the third one. And the third one actually talks about, once again, a lot of you are using your COBOL. Oh, great. That's wonderful. You might want to do something different, and we're going to show you how. Okay, let's hide the results. Now, let's get down to the good stuff. Today, our conversation will focus on how you can modernize your application in COBOL without changing a single line of code. Let that sink in for a second. Without changing a single line of code. To elaborate on how you can modernize your application in COBOL, we have here with us our Director of Business Development, Ivaldo Oliveira, along with our Director of Client Services, Joe Darnell. We will start out with a presentation followed by a live demo, and we'll close out highlighting a couple of great questions asked throughout our webinar. Before we jump in, there are a few quick housekeeping items. We encourage you to ask us any questions throughout the session using your chat box in the GoTo. You can submit them. We'll do our best to answer them as they come, and Ivaldo and Joe will pick up some of the most critical ones in the final Q&A session. But don't worry, we will answer all of them via email after the webinar. So please keep an eye on your inbox. Also, this webinar is being recorded and will be emailed out so you can have access to it at your leisure. All right, I think that covers the basics. Ready to modernize on 3? 1, 2, 3.
Hey, thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. I'm Joe, and this is my colleague Ivaldo here.
Hi, everybody.
And we're going to talk about how to modernize COBOL applications. For those of you joining us for the second day, welcome back. And for the new people, glad to have you here. We're going to talk.
Camera today.
Yeah, we have a camera today for those of you. With brief agenda here. So we're going to talk about the Faircom company overview. We're talking about c-treeRTG product overview. Ivaldo here is going to do a live demonstration. And then we'll talk about the supported platforms that c-treeRTG has to offer, followed by how to get a bunch of free stuff. You ready to get rolling?
Yep.
All right, let's get started here. Faircom, for those of you who don't know about Faircom, Faircom is based in the US with offices in Europe and South America. This year, Faircom turned 40 years old. Wow, 40 years of delivering high performance database technology for mission critical applications worldwide. I mean, there's customers all over the world that utilize our technology. Ivaldo, you and I have seen many customers over the years, and they all have different stories. One of the stories that came to mind was, for me, out of Verizon, the number of calls they process using our ISAM technology. It's very high throughput, ACID compliant data, right at their fingertips. It's completely reliable and stable. And that's been going on for like 30 years. What have you seen lately?
Well, yeah, Joe, and you see like all these customers here, what they have in common is that they are all running our technology to support mission critical applications. And you mentioned ISM, so that's how Faircom was born from the beginning. We developed an ISM database or an index sequential access method. It probably rings a bell to the COBOL users here listening to us here today. It's right, it's the same technology that's behind COBOL. It's not a coincidence. I would like to highlight some of them here, like for example, Thomson Reuters, one of our customers here for more than 10 years and using our technology to collect data from stock exchanges from all around the world, process that like more than 100,000 messages per second and send it back to their customers. I think it's really what's unique here about all across the customers here is that they use our technology for high throughput applications, very mission critical environments, and running for many, many years in a stable environments.
And very little to no database administration.
Yeah, exactly.
As COBOL is in the core of thousands of mission critical systems worldwide, like we just talked about, we just showed you some examples of some of our customers. There's a lot of pressure on management and architects to go, okay, well, we're going to modernize it. Well, great. Well, that brings a lot of different pressures to it. They're proprietary data files.
Yeah, and I guess that's the main message we want to deliver today on this series of webinars is really that the COBOL language, it's not really part of the problem, right? I think these applications they grew a lot during the years. They were developed many decades ago, many of those. They are right now much bigger than they were designed to be, and most of the challenges you feel like they are because of the COBOL environment. They have nothing to do with the language itself. They have mostly to do with the fact that the data is sitting in an environment where it's hard to access that, right? So right now, most cases of the customers we have seen, they struggle to find easy ways to access to that data. We're going to talk a little bit about how if you switch the focus from the language into the data, how you can have alternative path to modernize your environment, like the fact that you are right now dealing with proprietary data files. It's a big problem.
What are some of the other pressures that come up?
Yeah, because you don't have access to the data in a very easy way, because it's all proprietary, the way it was designed by the COBOL platforms in the past. At the same time, you cannot read those files very easily in real time unless you are developing in COBOL. So what that means is that customers, many times when they have to develop new applications, they have to go back and develop something in COBOL because the data is sitting in COBOL, or they have to rely on alternative ways to extract the data and bring it to a different environment. In both ways, it's really hard to read that data in real time. How does that affect your options to modernize this platform? Well, if you don't have an easy way to go to the data when you need it, this by itself is already a big blocker. Usually, you're forced to duplicate this data somewhere else and have this process going in D+1 or D+2, for example.
And we're going to show some of this during the demonstration today, as well as tomorrow. The webinar is, how to use that data in BI tools.
Correct, yes.
Now, multiple record data types, that seems to be one of the issues that comes up.
Yeah, what's interesting, COBOL is very powerful, and most of the power that COBOL delivers has to do with the I/O. So the performance that it can deliver and the fact that how it can handle the data, it speaks a lot to the longevity of this COBOL environments. And a big, almost like a secret sauce behind COBOL is the fact that it supports multiple record data types. What that means, Joe, is that you can have COBOL files that have different types of record inside the same file. Nowadays, this is something like talking to relational database managers, for example. They're like, why would someone want to do something like that? Well, yeah, it's very popular and has been used. It's very powerful as well. Has been used a lot across COBOL applications that we have seen. But at the same time, also creates another roadblock for you to access this data from other applications. Like if you're going to develop a Java application or, I don't know, a .NET new module, how can you handle with data files that have different types of records inside of it? Again, usually that has to be handled in separate, like extracting this data, separating the records in similar data types. Our solution handles all that automatically. We're going to show in a minute how you can do that.
And we do that by allowing c-tree to manage those files.
Yes.
And with that comes no additional language support.
It's all sealed, right? And I think when you think about the COBOL environment and think about the language reading the files and all that, a lot of the reason why this environment is almost operating by itself with no access from external applications is because the data is sitting in a very proprietary environment. So again, this is another roadblock for you if you want to develop a new report in some other language, or if you want to develop your mobile application using PHP or Python. It has to be able to talk to COBOL applications. In the past, some environments try to address that using some kind of application hub, making COBOL talking to the hub, and then the new applications talking to the hub. That never really worked very well. No, there are no good architectures for that. Well, here we encourage you to switch the focus to the data. And what happens when you do that? You know, like if you imagine you have access to the COBOL data, can you now develop applications, new modules in different languages? Yes, you can. We're going to see here how to do that.
Right, and I think a lot of people that are with us today, and a lot of the meetings that you and I sit in, we get requests from a lot of people that find out about this technology, and they go through the struggles of modernizing. You know, what do you think is the very first one that they either have tried already or they're looking at trying to put together?
No doubt is trying to rewrite the application, right? So in many cases, I'm sure a lot of the customers here have probably tried it already or have gone through some kind of project trying to rewrite the application. We definitely do not recommend that path. You know, our solution will give you a much easier and much safer path. Rewriting the application means essentially throwing away all your logic and beginning from scratch. It's very risky.
It's time consuming too.
It's super expensive because it's mostly addressed by services and consulting. So yes, if you rewrite your application, of course, now you are in a different language. You can integrate this with other environments for sure. But you don't have to do it, you know, and you don't have to go down this path and potentially have to roll everything back, like I have seen some customers getting themselves in this situation.
And then once they go through this, like some of the other options, what is the next one?
Porting is another approach. We have seen some customers trying to just replacing the platform, like operating systems, buying a newer machine with a newer operating systems and just trying to move COBOL from one environment to another one. It definitely does not address the challenge of how can you integrate this with other applications or develop new modules in new languages. It does bring a little bit of a modernization to the environment because you are leaving some older operating system, for example. But still, it's medium risk because you don't have any guarantees that it's going to work the same way it was working before. It's a new operating system. It's very expensive. You have to repurchase everything, like buy new hardware, buy new license of software in many cases, especially for the runtime. I don't think it's the best way to go either.
Well, I think both of these are reasonable, normal options that everyone considers because they're not aware of technology like this,
yes,
where it's an integrator.
Yeah, so now let's think about what happens if you have access to the COBOL data in a seamless and real-time mode, in a safe mode, really critical, because you don't want external applications messing up with your data or changing something or corrupting something. That cannot happen. But imagine that you have access to the COBOL data somehow, and now you could develop applications that share that data with COBOL in real time. Now, what does that mean? So at this point, if you think about this approach of integrating the COBOL environment with other modules, this opens up a set of new opportunities for you to modernize this environment.
So as we look at c-treeRTG, the COBOL, right here on your screen, you'll see a traditional COBOL architecture. Now, we mentioned file system ISAM, we mentioned the history of Faircom. Waldo, how do those kind of override each other?
Yeah, so this diagram here is trying to show how the COBOL environment, most of the COBOL environments operate today. So you can see, Joe, there's the source code up there with the COBOL languages, and then usually the COBOL runtime operates off some kind of object file that was precompiled or compiled. I think the point we want to highlight here is that this is all the logic side of the programs, but underneath the COBOL runtime, there is a file system. So you may or may not be aware of this file system. It's very transparent for most of the applications. Usually what happens is the COBOL application just opens a file, writes some records or reads some records, and then closes the file. But there is a file system managing all those access. A lot of the challenge you have today on reading that data or making that data available for other systems is the fact that this is a very proprietary file system, and it's very limited in its capacity. You see that it's called, we call file system an ISAM file system, right? So you mentioned ISAM in the beginning. happens to be exactly the same technology as we developed many years ago, but as a full database. Just want to highlight some of the more common file systems on the right there. Vision is the one used by COBOL. CISM is the most common one used by Micro Focus. So we're kind of trying to connect the dots here with a potential environment you have in your house. You can see how there are different options out there, but essentially this is how a COBOL application works.
So where does RTG fit in all of this?
Yeah, let me show you how. So here's what we do. So without touching the source code, so there's nothing going on the language side, on the application side.
I think it's definitely something a critical point to reiterate. There's no changes to the source code.
That's correct. Yeah. So we don't really, like I said at the beginning, we switch the focus from your language, from the programs. Leave it alone. Okay, leave it the way it is. The demo here, I don't even have the source code on the demonstration I'm going to run over here. It's all done just by focusing on the file system under the runtime. And our technology c-treeRTG is a full database. So what we do is we have all the drivers in place that allow you to tell the COBOL runtime that for a particular set of files or all your files, you can choose it. You want it to be managed by our database. So because we are a full database, we bring a lot of additional benefits to the scenario. Like, this is a transactional database. So what that means is that we control transactions for you, even though your COBOL application may or may not be using transactions. If it's using transactions, sure, we're going to respect all that, your commits and rollbacks and everything, you know. But if it's not using transaction, you don't have to worry. We turn transactions automatically for you under the cover. And then we bring scalability, and so you can grow to thousands and thousands of concurrent users that are connecting to the data file.
Now, c-treeRTG is not just an integration tool, but to reiterate, it's a full database.
Exactly. And that changes everything, Joe, because the moment you have a database managing your data files, and pay attention here, we're not talking about converting this into a relational database or something like that, because if you go down that route, you're going to encounter some of the challenges that we mentioned before. No, this is from the COBOL perspective, everything stays the same. It's an ISM record-oriented IO file system that will keep managing your files, but with the infrastructure of a full database around it. And then when we do that, we also bring additional APIs for you to access the data. Like you can see here, for example, C++. Oops, go back 1 minute. We should just, we can talk over this. So you can see here, here's the whole set of APIs.
I think all the COBOLers were getting excited.
Yeah. It's essentially, here's a diagram showing you how our technology works and why this is possible. So you can see down there the ISM API that we provide. That's the way where the COBOL application keeps accessing its files, reading and writing the files. But at the same time, we also bring all the SQL interfaces you see on the right in red.
So that's a full SQL engine.
Yes. So that's the trick here, how we solve the solution, solve this problem. Our technology is at the same time what we call a multi-model database. So we have not only ISM APIs, we have also SQL APIs on top of the same data. So we do it dynamically in real time and 100% under transaction control. So you can see, like, once you do the conversion of the files, the demo will go through this process in a minute here. You'll see how easy it is to do. But once you do the conversion of the files, your COBOL application stays untouched. But through our additional APIs, you can start to develop new modules in new languages, like, for example, PHP or Python or ADO, having .NET applications reading through ADO.NET, for example. There's a full set of different drivers and libraries that we provide with our database, and you can start to develop applications in any of those.
So as they modernize their operating systems and change their architecture, they can create all these other applications. And you're going to show them some of that.
Yeah, I will. And I think this is exactly the main point here for the webinar today. This is a perfect way for you to modernize, because once your data is available for other languages to read and share and access the data in real time, because we're controlling transaction, you don't have to worry about what if COBOL is opening a record and writing something. Don't worry, PHP will know about that because we're controlling the locking on those files. Once you do that, you can start to develop applications in new languages. And if you want, freeze your COBOL. So every new module you develop in whatever language you want, but you're sharing the same data. So eventually your COBOL starts to lose importance, and you have application mostly in different environments.
Now today, people are coming to us for this particular reason, modernizing COBOL applications. Yesterday, we spoke a little bit about high availability, disaster recovery. We talked a little bit about the scalability and backup and restores. And tomorrow, how to data mine this information, with the SQL interface. At the end of the day, lower total cost of ownership, right?
Yes, yeah. So this is really important. So the fact that you now look into the data and have a database managing your COBOL data files changes the game here, because from this point on, you get all the benefits like Joe mentioned. Like you got a hot backup, you get a full resilience for your system. We prevent data loss because it's a transactional system, but we also open up additional APIs for you to develop new modules in new languages, and that's all about integration.
Yeah, it's better than a tool. It's the whole solution, and we can get them there faster.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter, once you adopt c-treeRTG, you get all of this, right? Today, the focus is, oh, can I develop new modules accessing the same data? Yes, we'll show you how, but it's all part of the solution.
I think they've heard us talk for a while.
Yes, sir.
Yep, we need a little more COBOL.
Yeah, we
Evaldo,
definitely need more COBOL.
I'm going to hand this off to you. Why don't you take everybody through a little demonstration here?
Yes, let me switch over to the demo really quick here, bring up my screen. So our demonstration will go over a commercial application called Passport Business Solutions from one of our partners called Passport. It's a full commercial COBOL application, so you're gonna see a real COBOL program running here. It's character oriented. I'd just like to highlight that it doesn't matter for us. You know, I know many COBOL systems out there are already have already some kind of web interface. That doesn't really matter for us because again, our focus is on the data. Right, so I like to show you here. Let me show you first like how the application looks like. Before going to the application, let me bring up here show you how this looks like from the COBOL runtime perspective. So I mentioned to you, Joe, that what we do is we add additional file system to the COBOL environment, right? So what does that mean? Let me show you this is an COBOL application. So let me run this guy really quick here. So you can see here, Joe, what I'm listing here is just I told my COBOL runtime to tell me what all the libraries that it's using and so on. You can see this is an active COBOL environment, so it's using the Vision file system. This is by default. I encourage everybody listening to us here to do the same with your existing and check out which file system I'm using. You know, right now, if you don't know, sometimes it's known, but sometimes you don't even know about that. There are always ways to tell the runtime to list that.
And we work with it all. So we'll get to a little bit of that later, but give us a call because we worked with it all.
Yeah. And you can see what I did here is that we already did this for the demo. It's pretty down here, but you can see that we added c-treeRTG as an additional file system. Okay, so what it means essentially, you can see here that we don't force you to get rid of your existing file system. You can keep it. The message here is coexisting. Even the demo here will go over. This application has many different data files. We're going to take a couple of those and convert them to c-treeRTG just to show you what you can do once you do that. And I think the important message here is that you don't have to convert everything. Okay, so it's an additional file system for you to manage with your application.
Well, we're here to enhance the situation, not just gut it and redo it.
Correct. Yeah. So now let me show like a typical COBOL application. Trying to stay within camera here while I'm typing, but you can see like it's fully structured as folder and files. Okay, so it's an ERP, so I'm listing here what they call accounts payable folder. So these are the accounts payable data files, the typical .dat files. We're gonna be focusing mostly on venfuel00. It's a vendor file, and venhis00, which is a history of orders that were placed and you have to pay for these vendors. Okay, I think it's really more to show that this is very common under COBOL, having a set of folders that organize, like for example, a P00, because 00 is actually a fake company that this ERP we're going to use in a minute here, and then has a set of files. We respect all that. Nothing of this changes. Okay, so if you want to keep the name of your file, you can. If you want to keep your file the same place where it was before, you can. You know, so c-treeRTG is an ISM record-oriented and file-oriented database as well. So all this structure can stay intact. If you want to switch it places, you can. You know, we give you all the tools to manage all this in a very transparent way. And then let me show you something else here. Because these are Vision files, there are also the index files available here, right? So these are the typical index files, VIX. It changes depending on the COBOL environment you have. For Vision, they are called VIX. Sometimes they are bundled into the same data single file. Again, these indexes will be respected by our technology, so everything you have indexed in COBOL will stay indexed on the c-treeRTG. We know all that because we use the file schema from COBOL to create our files. So just want to make sure that kind of trying to help people to connect the dots on where we are. Let me show the application how it looks like. Right? So if I run the application, like I mentioned, it's called Passport. Start application here. Character oriented, right? So as you can see here, just logging in. Let me go here. Company 00, the fake company XYZ, right? It's an ERP. Nice Y2K message.
Y2K?
Yeah.
At least we're not dating
Good old times.
Snow
Y2K,
on the roof,
right?
and we're okay.
Yeah, love the Y2K. So here you go. It's typical COBOL environment. It's menu oriented. And you can see here the accounts payable I was talking before. Vendors is the file I was mentioning before. So this is VenFuel00. Okay, .dat. So I'm just essentially scrolling through the records here on VenFuel00 like a typical COBOL application. Okay, so now let's take the next step. Let's say, okay, how can I adopt c-treeRTG under this environment, and what does that mean in terms of modernizing? What can I do once I did that? Okay, so let me get out of this environment. Let me get out of this application here. Let me go through the steps. So what we want to do first is we want to convert VenFuel00 from a vision file into a c-tree file. So there's a conversion step that needs to be done. We're going to do it live here just to show it how simple it is. It changes a little bit depending on your COBOL environment. We are very familiar with many of those, so if you have any questions, just talk to us. In this case, we're using a tool called VUtil from Vision with the option of unload. So the idea here is to take all the data from VenFuel00 and drop it into a dump file. Okay, so this is just to extract the data. Okay, here you go. Just to remove all the data. Now I have a dump file. I want to make sure I don't mess up with my original file. So let me just take my original file and move it to let me copy it again here. Just take my original file and move it to a backup. Okay, so just take the original VenFuel0.dat and move it to a backup. So notice I'm moving the file. So what that means is that VenFuel00.dat is not there anymore, right? So if I go back to the application and run it again, go back here and just log the application again. Oops, no, wrong user. Here you go, and just come over here to vendors, and I hit vendors. You can see the file's not there anymore, right? So the application has an error because the file is gone, right? We just removed the file from underneath. We're going to remove it because we want to convert it into a c-treeRTG file. Okay, so how do we do that? There are many different ways. I'm going to go through one of the most simplest one here, which is first we're going to create an empty file under c-treeRTG with the same file structure as VenFuel00. In this case here, I'm extracting the file structure using the XFD or the external file descriptor. You don't have to. There are many different ways to do it. I just have access to the XFDs here, and it just makes it really simple. Okay, for those that are not familiar with XFDs, it's an XML file that's outside of COBOL that's describing the file structure, the file record or the file schema. Right? I just run ctutil in this case. This is our utility, but now with the option -make to create a file, so you can see I'm just going to create an empty file with the same schema as your original VenFuel00 file you had before. Right? So at this point, I have an empty file.
Yeah, we're just doing one file for the demo here, but as far as like people in production, they can do this over as much as they want. Move one file, move the whole system, phasal approach.
Absolutely, yeah. The most common scenario is that they convert all their files to c-treeRTG because there's so much benefit to do it, right?
If you don't convert them all at once too, you can also see the benefits, the difference in the benefits as well.
So the second step is let's go back to the data files that I just dumped over there, right? So I extracted all the data from VenFuel00. Now I want to load it, and we're going to do it again using ctutil. So just load it from the dump into the new VenFuel00, the empty file, add in those records, and you can see I added 216 records over here, right? So that's the size of how many records was in that file, okay? So at this point here, I already have a new VenFuel00 file converted to c-tree. But
how do they know that c-tree is managing those files, Waldo?
Yeah, at this point, nothing. It's still gonna not gonna work. If I just go back to the application and try to run it, I'm still gonna get an error. Okay, there's one final step where you have to tell the COBOL runtime which file system to use for VenFuel00. For the case of the COBOL environment, the way to do this is by setting up an environment variable with the name of the file, underline host, and you can see here all I'm doing is exporting the name of the file and telling the runtime, say, hey, for VenFuel00, I want you to use c-tree as the file system. So once I do this, okay, at this point here, this is all you need to do to convert a file to c-treeRTG and get c-treeRTG managing the file. So if I go back to the application, you're gonna see logging in again. Oops, I have to type the right password here. Okay, there you go. And I'll go back here to my original vendors file and I hit enter. You can see I browse the file again. But But at this point here, this is already a c-treeRTG file. Right? Has been converted from Vision file into C-tree, and now it's being managed by c-treeRTG.
So C-tree, obviously, we told them it's a complete solution. So there's obviously tools that we can show them how they have access to those files.
Yes, absolutely. So now let's look into what you can do with this file. So now once it's under c-treeRTG, do I already have access to all the additional interfaces that C-tree offers? Almost there. Okay? There's one final step we need to do, which is something that only Faircom has, and we introduced this as a concept, which is we make this file available under SQL. Okay, so let me get my command here. So we have to c-treeRTG is natively an ISAM file system, file manager, right? So we are a database where your files are all ISAM. And that's how we deliver the throughput and the I/O that COBOL is used to have, and we preserve it, and sometimes we even get it better. You know, if you have multiple concurrency, like thousands of users, performance usually scales better with c-treeRTG than what you have. But we don't want to go through only ISAM, right? We want to go through additional APIs. So the way to do this is first making this file available under SQL, right? So the way to do, again, is using our utility called ctutil. But now we want to use the option -sequalize. Right?
What did you say, Evaldo?
Sequalize, yeah.
Sequalize, I love that. This is my favorite part.
Yeah, this is a verb that we invented here at Faircom. We'll take a COBOL file and sequalize it. What it means is that you make it available under our SQL server. Right? This is only metadata that goes on, so we're not converting the data into SQL. We're not normalizing the data. What we're making is we're making it available for our SQL server to understand the record structure of a COBOL file and make it available for SQL interfaces. Okay, so once I do this here, I can come over here. Now, so let me switch over to my additional interfaces. We can now go over to some of our additional tools you mentioned before. You're seeing here what we call SQL Explorer, C3 SQL Explorer. Okay, this is the interface that allows you to manage our SQL server. So it's a SQL server running on top of the ISAM management system. So it's a single data set, but you can access the data set from multiple interfaces. In this case, SQL. It's a full SQL database. So we support store procedures, we support triggers. You know, we have views over here, and you can see up here some tables. Right now, let me do a refresh here. Refresh, and you're gonna see that VenFuel00 is right here. Okay, so this is the table. This is exactly the same table from COBOL. So if I click over here in table records, I can now run a SQL query from here. See, like I can probably just come over here. Let me just run a SQL query really quick here and show you how powerful this is. So I can just select vend name from VenFuel00 and run this query. And you're gonna see that it's coming up here. Oops, I typed something wrong here. Vend, I think let me get the right name here. Hold on. VenFuel00 has vend name, so we'll come over here. It's vend name, vend select vend. Let's try the number from VenFuel00 and see if I can get it over here. Oops, there's an error here. What's going on here? Let's see. Go back over here, table records, and I got my tables here. Yeah. So you can see this is available for SQL. Okay, so at this point here, you can query all your data and you can access all your data using SQL interface. Okay, I don't know what's going on with my little SQL statement there. I have some typo there. I don't want to waste time trying to fix that. What I want to show you is that you can see that at this point, VenFuel00.dat file is available for your SQL.
So that's real-time access to the data through this interface.
It is. So I can come over here, like let's do some updates. For example, in this case here, I can take any record here and update it. And just for example, I don't know, let's change the name of this vendor here to Wordify, for example. Okay. Yeah. Just run behind it's running an update query, a SQL update query. And while we do this, let me go back here let me run the application.
They didn't believe you up to this point. Let's really prove it's not clickbait.
Yeah. So you can see here, if I go back to the application, to the COBOL application, and log in here again, and just show you here how this looks like. Go to vendors, and you're gonna see that this vendor changed its name, right? So it's the same data set. It's not duplicating anything. It's exactly the same data set, okay? So this is what you need to do in order to have your data file being managed by C-tree. And let me switch over here and show you something else. You notice here probably there's a couple of additional files, VenHist-Fuel4 and VenHist-Fuel3. What these are is actually some additional tables that I already sequalized before the demo here, just for the sake of the time. And you can see that, remember I mentioned to you VenFuel00 and VenHist00. So for COBOL, there's only one file called VenHist00.dat. For C-tree, when I sequelize that file, it shows up as 2 different SQL tables. What happened here behind the scenes is that we detected from the file schema that that file had a redefine inside it. So redefines are the multi-record data types that we were talking before, and that's a big challenge for COBOL.
So they don't need to normalize the data.
They don't need to normalize the data. We see what we did automatically. We translated those records into 2 different SQL tables. So from SQL, it's going to look like 2 different SQL tables. For COBOL, it stays like a single data file. Okay, we do it automatically. You don't have to worry about that. Okay. So at this point here, everything, this files here are already available. So I can come over here, like create some views. Like this is a view that runs a join between 2 different tables. I can run the view here and query this data. Let me run the view here and query the data. You're gonna see like I'm joining vend hist and vend few 00 from the SQL side. So I'm running a query, joining 2 different tables on COBOL using SQL. Right? But this is just the setup environment. So now let's see how can you modernize, right? So yeah, sure. This by itself is already a big step into modernization, because from here you can have JDBC access, ODBC access, ADO.NET, all kinds of different queries. Okay.
Which one are you going to show us first?
Well, we're going to go into Python first. Okay. So let me show you. We have, remember from the API diagram, we have a full set of different APIs available. Let me bring up the Python one here. I have a Python program running. It's very small here. Maybe I should zoom in here a little bit here. Make sure I got it. Let's see if I can. I'm not able to zoom in. Let me make this a little bit bigger here because it's really looking very small here.
Yeah, it's a little small.
Yeah, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more. Let me do it again. My keyboard's a bit more. Just make sure people can at least read what we're showing here, right? Because zoom in. Okay, one more. Okay, there you go.
Now they definitely believe us.
Yeah, so you can see that this is a typical Python program. It's a very simple one. I think it's just really to show the concept. Okay, so what I'm doing here is essentially defining the tables, you know, and having like specific data sets here, like for example RTG data. I want to show you down here with this particular line of code, c-treeRTG connect. So this is using our libraries and our APIs. Well, you just have to tell your Python program, hey, I want you to connect to that server. This is exactly the same server we're showing in the background with some connection information. And once you do this, you can use c-treeRTG as a way to run your queries. So in this case here, I'm essentially just running a big query, select the name CT from field 00. You can see, and then storing the results and showing the results on the screen. It's a very simple Python program, but I think the key message here is that once you did it, you did the sequelization with our file. It's already available from COBOL. Nothing changed from the COBOL side, but just by doing that, now you can write a Python program like this here and run it and query your data from SQL. So let's see how that works. In this case here, I have actually a second machine, a remote machine, an Amazon server running up there in Amazon Cloud. And it's just to show this is a client server solution, so you can run this from anywhere. So this data is available anywhere you want. And I'm just going to run the program here again. Let me show again. We're trying to prove this is not slideware, right? So let's make sure everybody sees here it's not slideware. So this is just a make file running a Python program. You can see here's the RTG demo.py that I was showing a minute ago down in the background, right? And you can see from the Python program here that. Wait a minute. I actually feel like, oh, I'm sorry, guys. I'll show you the Node.js. Let me show the right one. This is the Python one. I'll show you Node.js. I didn't notice that. So here's the Python one, okay? So that's the Python program, and here's the Python
library.
We're
just testing the audience here to see if they're paying attention. Good job.
I was so concentrated and explaining everything, I did not even notice that that was JavaScript, not Python. So here's the Python program, okay, with the Python libraries, and connecting the same, very similar to the Node.js. I kind of break up the surprise here that I was going to do in a minute, showing the Node.js application. So very similar application, very similar structure, and all it's doing the same, right? It's just running a query. You can see down here the same structure, and then the query down here with the queries down, querying the same file, then field 00. So now let's run this guy. All right? So let's run the application here. Here you go. So it's gonna read the records, and it's gonna start to display the records. You see, so went through our Python API, you know, using our Python libraries, connected to our server, and read the field 00 first 30 records, I guess, this application. You can see here, change the data, wordifying, right? So it's reading the live data from behind the scenes. So this is a great way. So at this point, Joe, what developers could do from this point on is really start to develop new modules in Python and query that data with the new applications 100% in Python. You know, you don't have to do 100% in COBOL anymore.
Right, which is one of the advantages why we want them to move as much of that data over to c-treeRTG to manage.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is I think it's a great step to consider an alternative to modernize your COBOL environment is adding additional languages to what you can do as long as you're sharing your data files. Okay.
And this is part of the thing that if somebody reaches out to us, this is using a sample set of their own environment we can do for them.
Exactly. Yes. So this is the Python example. Let me show another one. Like for example, a Node.js. You guys already saw the JavaScript one. Here you go. That's the JavaScript.
Surprise.
Yeah, surprise. So that's the JavaScript version running. This example we're going to show here, this is running under Node.js. So it's very similar, but this time using our libraries from the for Java, right? So you can see you just connect again, right? And using the same structures, essentially just changes according to the language syntax that you're using. We mentioned we support C#, we support .NET. You know, there are all kinds of different interfaces here. Java, of course, like in this case. So let me show you this application. So what this simulation would do is that it would allow you to come over here and just have a Node.js application running behind the scenes, showing you all the data in a web interface, for example. You see, so it's up here running, right? So it queried the data in real time. I think it brought the cache here. Let me try to refresh the data, see if it can bring the Wordifying here. So there you go. Let's try to get this guy here. See, Wordify, right? So I get off the cache here just from the browser. So it's reading the data over there. So at this point here, Joe, I have my COBOL application running on top of Venfield 00, intact, working the same way it was before. We didn't touch the source code, as you saw, okay? But I have concurrently a Python application querying the data, and I have also a Node.js application looking to the same data. So there's no better way for you to modernize this COBOL environment. You preserve everything you have in COBOL, like all the investment you did. You don't have to change anything in the COBOL side, but you can develop applications in new modules, sharing the data through c-treeRTG.
You know, the great thing about c-treeRTG not forcing someone down a path, we're not telling you have to do it in Python, you have to do it in this, you have to do it in that. You're already creating applications for the rest of your business. Now we're opening the gates for you to have access to your COBOL data.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. Look into the data. What does that mean in terms of modernization of your platform? It means a lot. You know, all of a sudden you have ODBC, JDBC, and you can develop Python modules, you can develop Node.js and all the languages we support. So this concludes the demo. Joe, let me switch over back here to the slide sets. And you can see, Joe, here's just a summary again of all the interfaces that we provide for our customers. All you have to do is to do those simple steps that we just did. You have all the access to the data through any of these interfaces that you can see on the screen here. So you can go all the way, for example, to SQL Alchemy. We have customers using SQL Alchemy integrated to COBOL data files and just developing a complete new set of applications using SQL Alchemy, so they don't have to go back and ask COBOL developers to do something.
Yeah, I think everybody that adopts this they do move all the data to let c-treeRTG manage it because of all the benefits. You know, even though in the beginning everybody gets a little touchy and let's do a phasal approach, but I think that moving it over, there's too many benefits.
Yes, yeah.
And some of it tomorrow we'll talk about, once you develop these applications, how do you mine that data?
Oh,
right?
yeah. So now
we get into fun tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. Especially through ODBC and JDBC, you can see there. These are the entry points for most of the BI tools. So we're going to see tomorrow how you can, and now from this point on, you can actually have a real BI tool. We're going to do something with MicroStrategy tomorrow and just show how MicroStrategy can plug into the system, and from that point on, just have real-time access.
And in the beginning, we talked to you guys about all these different customers we have and why they chose us. And it's because of we're high performance.
Yes, and this is also important to understand. The moment I converted Venfield 00 to c-treeRTG, you got access through all those additional APIs, like I mentioned before. But not only that, okay, from this point on, Venfield 00 is being controlled by a transactional database. c-treeRTG is fully transactional, so you get protection to your data. You know, it's not going to corrupt anymore. You don't have to rebuild it anymore. We do all automatic recovery for you. c-treeRTG brings hot backup to the picture, really important for you to have peace of mind, because I'm sure you're backupping your files today on COBOL. You don't know if they're open or not, corrupted or not. A whole set of benefits, like, for example, security as well.
Yeah, we support TLS, SSL. We can also secure the data at rest as well.
Yes, the example I show, like querying the data from an Amazon cloud server all the way down to our data center down here, there's communication going on across the network. Well, you can protect that using SSL TLS, for example. We encrypt all that.
Now, what do we support? I mean, there's a big saying we got around the office, right? Walking around, if anybody contacts, you're not in the mainframe, we support it.
Yeah, that's true. So the example you saw here was with COBOL, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, but it's not only COBOL. Okay, so you can see here, Joel, it's a long list. This is just a partial list. We support many different environments. I would like to highlight Variant. Variant is our partner. They have a very cool solution called COBOL that allows you to convert COBOL applications into Java and then run it multi-platform. c-treeRTG is OEM with COBOL from the beginning, from their start. So they chose us as the file system, a native file system for COBOL. But you saw the demo with COBOL. We ran out multiple versions of COBOL from the oldest one all the way to the latest one. Micro Focus is also one of our partners. So you can see here we have customers running all the way down to Micro Focus 3.0, which we're talking about the 80s here. So all the way to Visual COBOL and even RM COBOL.
Yeah, I think one message to get through here is even if you think your environment's unique, give us a call. We probably have seen it or done it.
Yeah, absolutely. We encourage you to talk to us. Don't feel like, oh, but my COBOL is too old, or I don't know. Yeah,
even better, right?
Yeah, we don't care. We are very open to develop with you. Many of our customers came with SCO, for example, NCR Unix. Joe mentioned we are multi-platform. We're running any platform you can imagine, and we are used to deal with this kind of environment. So talk to us.
And we've mentioned this multiple times. We're not just a tool, we're a full database, right? And we talked some of this yesterday about the replication piece of it, the backup, failover, high availability, disaster recovery. I mean, these are part of normal business continuity plans that COBOL's been left out of.
Yeah, you might even think that you're challenged right now as well, and I just want to see how I can develop new applications in .NET. But the moment you or Python, for example, but the moment you use c-treeRTG, all these benefits come together, so everything is gonna be part of the solution as well.
And if you haven't seen the webinar from yesterday, go ahead and check it out. We do show our Ops Manager, which shows the replication tool, or just give us a call.
We can schedule a demo, a personal demo with you if you're interested.
Exactly. Well, Valdo, I think we kind of proved that the system works. I think we showcased today how to modernize your application. Tomorrow we're going to do a webinar on what to do with that information.
Yes.
Now I think getting the free stuff.
Yeah.
At the end of this webinar, Jeff's going to take you through a couple of last-minute items, and then you're going to be delivered a survey. Fill that survey out. Tell us how we did and what you'd like to see in future webinars from Valdo and I. Everyone who completes one of these surveys gets one of these really cool Dino shirts. Remember that apps there?
Yeah, they are super cool. Like we think COBOL is a powerful beast. We're here to help you to, instead of getting rid of it, we'll help you to achieve new heights with COBOL.
It's all about coexisting.
It is. We need more COBOL, right?
Now here's a list of all the webinars. This is obviously day 2 of 3. The links are going to be posted in the chat box there, so feel free to click on them. And one final thing, the rest of your free stuff here. How do you get a free copy of this? Go to faircom.com/RTG. You can get a free evaluation copy. Once you get that and get that installed, give us a call at 1-800-234-8180. Email Valdo or myself, and we'll help you expedite this, and we'll show you how your environment can take part of this.
Yeah, we encourage a proof of concept. We like proof of concept. We think it's very cool to see everything working here with a demo environment. But of course, you want to see it working with your application. So don't be shy. Talk to us. We helped a lot of customers already to see it working with your application. So we help you set up the environment. Joe was mentioning here, free proof of concept for this sequence of webinars here. Talk to us as soon as possible.
Exactly. And it's not really about them figuring it out, but it's how to get there quicker. I know time is money.
Yes.
And we can help get right to the point and show you the real time with your particular data set, how we can do this.
And make the decision faster, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Valdo, it's been fun day 2. What do you think?
It is cool. With cameras.
Cameras are working today. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. I hope you at least got a piece of this and learned something. Again, feel free to reach out to us. We're very open and inviting. Now I think it's time to kick it back to Jeff.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Hey, for the benefit of our audience, can you guys please expand upon the following questions? The first one's kind of geared towards Evaldo. So you're kind of implying that all these different APIs that we have and offer in c-treeRTG COBOL, that I don't necessarily have to retrain any of my programmers. So I have a Java guy, a Python guy, PHP. They can all interact with my data no matter how or in their own way. Is that true? Or do I need to
That is
specifically train them back into Java or one specific? Or can you elaborate on that for me?
No. These are all the APIs that we provide, are all based on libraries that come with c-treeRTG, and they are all native on the language that you're developing. So if you what you saw there in Python, for example, any Python developer can just write that code and start to develop applications that are reading the data from COBOL file. You know, same with Java, same with C#, same with all those interfaces. These are native drivers that we provide. So precisely, that's the modernization message we're trying to deliver here today. From this point on, you can take your whole Java team and just tell them, hey, the data files from COBOL are available for you to develop new applications using those. You don't have to keep transporting data over places and all that. You can just have a new system in a new language, sharing the data with COBOL in real time. So there's no retraining or anything.
All right, awesome. Well, that's good news. So Joe, with that said, if I do want to use a different API for all the different programmers that I have and the different languages that they utilize, is there a cost per API? Like, am I going to be charged for Java and for PHP and for Python, or how's that happen?
You know, the sales instinct in me says yes, but the reality is no. It's one complete solution with everything we showed you guys today. That also includes the replication piece of it, all the API access. Everything is just one-stop solution. And we can customize the licensing to meet the needs to make it more valuable partner in yours.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's good news. All right, everyone, I think that's a wrap. I want to thank everyone for joining us. We hope that you found it was time well spent. If you're ready to learn more, consider joining us tomorrow as we conclude our COBOL series. Tomorrow, we'll talk about real-time analytics over your COBOL data, and I know the guys have some great things to show you there. Valuable links and contact information are listed on the slide within the presentation window for your convenience. At the completion of the webinar series, you will find all these webinars, including today's, available to watch on demand at the link in the chat window. Also, please feel free to reach out directly to Evaldo and Joe if you have any direct questions. Their emails are right there for you, so please go ahead and ask them what you need to. And lastly, let's talk about that survey. So please fill out that survey in order to receive your Dyno COBOL shirt. When I close out the webinar, a pop-up window will show up, and when it does, please click the close button to immediately receive the survey. Thanks again. We hope to see you next time. Signing off, Jeff, Evaldo, and Joe.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow.